The air is cool and damp against your skin, carrying the first real chill of evening. A thick, heavy mist is rolling in from the sea, a silent gray tide that is swallowing the world piece by piece. You watch as it blankets the forest of masts in the harbor, turning the towering ships into ghostly apparitions, their skeletal fingers reaching into a sky the color of slate and faded lavender. The world is losing its sharp edges. Your eyes adjust to the fading light. The only true sources of warmth are the lanterns hanging outside the taverns, spilling a soft honeyed glow onto the wet cobblestones below. Each stone glistens, and the small puddles scattered across the road look like fallen stars reflecting the dim light back at the sky. Listen. Listen past my voice. You can hear the low rhythmic creak of the wooden dock beneath your feet, a sound that speaks of immense weight and the patient push of the water. You can hear the dull thud of barrels being rolled somewhere in the distance and the muffled murmur of voices from a nearby alehouse. Not loud, not intrusive, just a soft hum of life winding down. And above it all, you can hear the soft percussive tap, tap, tap of rope against wood, a restless sound like the harbor itself is breathing. Take a slow breath in, and as you breathe out, you can almost smell it. The sharp, clean tang of salt in the air, the faint, oily scent of fish and tar, the deep, earthy smell of damp wood that has known the sea for 100 years. And weaving through it all, a thin, reassuring ribbon of coal smoke from a nearby chimney, a promise of warmth somewhere in the growing cold. You have been on your feet all day. You've traveled a long way to be here at the edge of the world. Your feet ache with a dull, persistent throb. Your shoulders carry the weight of your journey. And your mind simply longs for stillness, for rest. But here at the edge of the water, there is one last invitation, one final opportunity before the night claims everything. And then through the shifting veils of fog, you see it, a ship, but it does not look like the others. It seems to hold a different kind of silence. While the other vessels are cluttered and busy, even at rest, this one possesses a profound stillness. It is an older ship, you can tell by the proud high curve of its stern and the broadness of its hull. It looks immensely strong, solid, built not for speed but for endurance. It is an East Indiaman, one of the great legendary vessels of the Dutch East India Company, the VOC. You've heard stories of these ships. They are not merely cargo vessels. They are floating fortresses, mobile warehouses of immense value. These are the giants that tame the world's oceans, carrying whole fortunes in their bellies, tons of pepper cloves and nutmeg from the Spice Islands, bolts of impossibly fine silk from China, chests of tea and porcelain. They are armed with dozens of cannons, carrying enough soldiers to defend their precious cargo from pirates or to establish a new trading post on a foreign shore. They are the very embodiment of Dutch power, of an empire's ambition, etched in oak and iron. This ship before you, it feels like it belongs to that legendary fleet. It has the same air of authority, of having seen things you could never imagine. You try to read the name painted on its stern, but the letters are faded, worn by time and salt. The mist plays tricks on your eyes, blurring the gold leaf until it's just a smudge. Still, you think you can make it out. It looks like the Flying Dutchman. The name stirs a faint half-forgotten memory, a tale you heard from the old sailors in the tavern, their voices low and gravelly over their mugs of warm ale. They spoke of De Vliegende Hollander, a ghost ship they called it, a cursed vessel doomed to sail the oceans for eternity, never to make port. Its captain, a man of iron will and terrible pride, Van der Decken, they named him, had been caught in a fearsome storm off the Cape, a storm so violent it seemed the world itself was coming apart. And in his defiance, he swore an oath. He swore he would round the Cape even if it took him until Judgment Day. The story goes that his challenge was answered. A ghostly form appeared on his deck, and a terrible bargain was struck. And now the sailors say Van der Decken and his crew are still out there paying the price for his hubris. Forever sailing, forever lost, a phantom of green, eerie light seen by other ships as a terrible omen of their own doom. But that's just a story, isn't it? A fairy tale spun to scare young boys on their first voyage. You are a practical person standing on a real dock, and what you see before you is a real ship, a magnificent if weathered East Indiaman that seems to be in need of a new crewman. You see an opportunity, a wage, a journey, a purpose, and perhaps you are just tired, so very tired of the land. If you too are feeling weary, if your mind is like a sailor searching for a quiet harbor to drop anchor, then come with me. Let us step aboard this vessel together. There is no need to hurry, no need to force anything. Simply listen and let your imagination be the gentle tide that carries you forward. And if this journey helps you find a moment of peace, perhaps you could share this story with another soul who is also looking for a voyage into their own quiet dreams. The gangplank is down. It waits for you. You take the first step onto the gangplank. The wood feels slick and damp beneath the worn soles of your shoes, and it sways slightly with the gentle movement of the ship. You place one foot carefully in front of the other, your hands hovering at your sides for balance. The mist is thicker here, right above the dark, still water, and it seems to muffle the world even more. The sounds of the harbor recede behind you, and the sounds of the ship grow louder. A deep, resonant creak, like a giant sighing in its sleep. As you reach the top of the plank, a hand emerges from the gloom to steady you. It grips your forearm firmly. The hand is strong, calloused, but it is colder than you expect. Colder than the damp evening air. It feels like a hand that hasn't known the warmth of a fire for a very long time. The sailor attached to the hand helps you onto the deck, his face a collection of shadows under the brim of his hat. He doesn't speak. He simply nods a slow, deliberate gesture before turning away and melting back into the ship's twilight. You stand there for a moment, letting your senses adjust. The silence is the most peculiar thing. There are no shouts from the forecastle, no officers barking orders, none of the usual boisterous energy of a ship preparing for a voyage. There is only the low, mournful whistle of the wind as it weaves through the rigging, a sound like a sad, forgotten song. The great sails already unfurled are a pale, ghostly gray, and they barely stir in the breeze. Your eyes are drawn upward to the quarterdeck. A figure stands there, silhouetted against the fading light. Tall, broad-shouldered, unmoving. Can only be the captain. You cannot see his face, cannot discern his features in the deep shadows, but his posture alone speaks volumes. It is a posture of absolute, unshakable resolve, of a will that has been hardened into something beyond mere stubbornness. It is the stance of a man waiting for something that will never arrive. He seems to notice you, though. He does not turn his head. A moment later, another sailor approaches and simply points you toward a hatch leading below deck. No questions are asked. No contract is signed. It seems your presence is simply accepted. They always need another hand. You follow the sailor's silent direction and descend through the hatch, leaving the misty gray twilight of the world above for the deep perpetual dusk of the world below. The air changes immediately. It becomes heavy, thick and close. It's a complex tapestry of smells, woven together over years, or perhaps centuries. There is the sharp, acrid scent of old, unwashed sweat, the deep, earthy odor of damp wood that is slowly surrendering to decay. And beneath it all, the ever-present biting smell of bilge water, a stagnant, salty perfume that clings to the back of your throat. The only light comes from a few lanterns hung low from the beams, their flames burning with a strange stillness, casting long, dancing shadows that make the cramped space feel both smaller and more alive. You are on the gun deck, the cannons silent and cold in their berths along the walls. But this is also where the crew sleeps. And as your eyes adjust, you see it. There are no bunks, no beds, no semblance of private quarters. Instead, the space is filled with a dense hanging thicket of canvas, a forest of hammocks slung from the low ceiling beams, packed so tightly together that they almost touch. They hang in staggered rows, a swaying off-white jungle that stretches from one end of the deck to the other. This is your new home. This is where you will rest. A sailor points to an empty hammock near the center, one of the few not yet claimed. He hands you a thin, scratchy wool blanket, its texture rough against your fingers. It smells faintly of lanolin in the sea. You stow your meager belongings in a small sea chest nearby and then turn to face your bed. Getting into a hammock on a moving ship is an art form, a clumsy dance of balance and trust. You grip the sides, lift a leg, and tumble in the canvas, cocooning around you, swinging wildly for a moment before settling into a steady rhythmic sway. This motion, it is the pulse of the ship. With every roll of the waves, the entire forest of hammocks swings in unison, a slow, silent, synchronized ballet. To your left and right, your new shipmates are already in their own hammocks, their bodies just indistinct shapes in the gloom. They don't speak to you. They don't speak to each other. Their faces, what you can see of them, are gaunt and hollow-cheeked, their skin pulled tight over their bones. Their eyes seem to look past you, past the wooden walls of the ship, into some vast, empty distance. When you meet their gaze, they offer only a slow, tired nod, an acknowledgement that carries no warmth, only a shared, unspoken understanding. They are not unkind, you realize. They are simply worn down to their very essence by a weariness that seems as old as the ocean itself. There are unwritten laws in this swaying forest. You learn them not through words, but through observation. You do not touch another man's hammock. That small rectangle of canvas is his entire world, his only claim to space, his sanctuary. It is a violation to disturb it. Privacy is a currency more valuable than gold here, and it is measured in inches. Your entire existence, your personal domain, is the space your body occupies within this canvas sling. Everything outside of it belongs to the ship, to the crew as a whole. It is a strange sort of communal living, born of extreme necessity, a life where you are never truly alone, but always profoundly isolated. You lie back, your head resting on your bundled up coat for a pillow. The creaking of the ship's timbers is a constant symphony around you. It is not one sound, but 1,000. The deep groan of the main beams under stress, the higher-pitched squeak of the trunnels, the soft rubbing sound of the hull planks against each other. It is the language of the ship, and you are beginning to understand its grammar. At first, the ceaseless motion of the hammock is unsettling, a constant reminder that you are adrift at the mercy of the water. But as the minutes stretch into what feels like hours, something shifts. The gentle, predictable sway begins to work its way into your bones. Back and forth, rise and fall. It matches the rhythm of your own breathing, the slow beat of your own heart. It is the rhythm of a cradle, the rhythm of the tide. It is a lullaby sung by the ship itself. And in this dark, crowded, and strangely silent corner of the world, you feel an unexpected comfort. The gentle rocking is no longer a source of anxiety. It is an invitation to let go. There is no bell to signal a mealtime. There is only a subtle shift in the ship's rhythm, a quiet instinctual movement of bodies. The cook, a hulking, silent man with a beard that seems to have captured decades of sea spray, emerges from his galley. He doesn't call out. He simply places a large wooden bucket on the deck, and the crew congregates. There are no tables or benches here. You find a spot on the deck, leaning your back against a cannon or the rough-hewn wall of the ship, and you are handed your ration. A small, shallow wooden bowl, worn smooth by countless hands before yours. A tin cup. And the staples of your new existence? First, the bread. Though to call it bread feels like a generous overstatement, it is hardtack. A biscuit, yes, but not in any way you would recognize. This is flour and water, mixed and baked, and then baked again, and then perhaps baked a third time until every last molecule of moisture has been ruthlessly expelled. The result is a pale, dense square that is less like food and more like a piece of building material. It is famously, legendarily hard. You cannot simply bite into it. You would break a tooth. You see the other sailors take their portion and strike it sharply against the edge of a cannon barrel, breaking it into smaller, more manageable chunks. And then you notice something else. Before they put a piece in their mouths, many of them tap it firmly on the deck. A few tiny dark specks fall out. Weevils. The sailors call them ship's accountants, as they are the most numerous inhabitants aboard. There is an old joke among seafarers. It's better to eat your hardtack in the dark. That way, you don't have to see who you are sharing your meal with. The weevils add a certain protein, but not a pleasant texture. You learn quickly to follow the ritual of tapping. Next is the meat. It is hauled from a massive salt-crusted barrel, and it is a deep, unappetizing shade of reddish brown. This is salted beef, preserved in a mountain of brine to withstand the long months at sea. It is intensely punishingly salty, and the texture is like chewing on a piece of boiled leather. It requires a significant and dedicated effort from your jaw to break it down. There is no flavor of beef left, only the overwhelming taste of salt and thyme. To wash this down, you have your drink. The water stored in the ship's casks is a living thing. After a few weeks at sea, It develops a green, slimy film and a taste that is both metallic and foul. It is not something you drink for pleasure. It is something you drink for survival, and even then, with great reluctance. This is why the true drink of the sailor is not water, but alcohol. You are given a ration of beer, weak, thin, and watery, but fermented, and therefore safer than the water. Or, more likely, grog. A simple, potent mixture of rum diluted with a little of that questionable water. The alcohol kills some of the bacteria and makes the water more palatable, while the water prevents the crew from becoming too drunk to work. It burns slightly as it goes down a fleeting warmth in the constant damp chill of the ship. You sit there among the silent crew and you eat. You dip a chunk of your weevil-tapped hardtack into your grog, letting it soak for a long moment until it softens just enough to be chewed. You gnaw on the tough, salty meat. You take a sip of the lukewarm, slightly sweet, slightly foul liquid in your cup. And as you finish your meal, a profound realization settles upon you. This is it. This will be the meal you eat tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. There are no seasons here, no fresh harvests. There is only the unchanging menu of the sea, the hard biscuit, the salted meat, the stale water. It is a diet of pure function, designed not for enjoyment, but for the singular purpose of keeping a body moving. The repetition of it, you suspect, is a greater challenge than its taste. It is a grinding culinary monotony that stretches out before you as vast and featureless as the gray ocean itself. Life on the ship is governed not by a clock, but by a rhythm of endless tasks. There is no concept of a workday ending. There is only the work itself, a great hungry beast that must always be fed. You are assigned to a watch, and your existence becomes a cycle of labor and brief unsatisfying rest. The ship, you learn, is a fragile organic thing, a wooden shell against the immense power of the ocean, and it demands constant vigilant care to keep from succumbing to the elements. One of your most frequent tasks is swabbing the deck. It sounds simple, almost mundane, but on a ship, it is a ritual. You are handed a holy stone, a large heavy block of sandstone, and you get down on your hands and knees. Alongside a dozen other men, you begin to scrub. Back and forth. Back and forth. The stone grinds against the wooden planks, its gritty texture scouring away the salt, the grime and the slippery film of sea spray. The sound is a low, abrasive whisper, a shh, shh, that becomes the background music to your life. After the stone comes the mop, or the swab. You slosh buckets of seawater across the deck and push the heavy rope-headed mop, driving the dirty water towards the scuppers, where it drains back into the sea. The work is hard on your knees and your back, but there is a strange meditative quality to it. The repetitive motion requires no thought, allowing your mind to drift, to become as empty and gray as the sky above. The deck is never truly clean. By the time you finish, the sea has already begun to reclaim it with a fresh coat of salt and spray. And so the task will begin again tomorrow. When you are not scrubbing, you are mending. The ship's lifeblood is its sails and rigging, and they are in a constant state of disrepair. You sit in a small, sheltered circle with other sailors, a massive, stiff canvas sail spread across your laps. You are given a sailmaker's palm, a leather strap that fits over your hand with a small metal dimple to help you push the needle and a thick waxed thread. The needles are enormous, more like small metal spikes, and pushing them through the heavy canvas requires all your strength. Your fingers, soft from a life on land, quickly become raw, then blistered, then calloused. You learn to stitch with a steady, practiced rhythm, your movements mirroring the men beside you who have been performing this same task for so long, their hands seem to do it without conscious thought. They are mending a tear from a long-forgotten gale, or reinforcing a seam that is frayed with age. The work is silent, meticulous, and like the scrubbing, it is infinite. For every tear you mend, the wind finds a new weakness to exploit. And then there is the pump. This is the task that everyone dreads. Deep in the belly of the ship lies the bilge, the lowest point of the hull. It is a dark, foul-smelling cavern where all the leaked seawater, the spilled grog, the filth, and the forgotten refuse of the ship eventually collect. This stagnant, putrid water, or bilge water, must be pumped out, lest its weight unbalance the ship, or its rot eat away at the timbers from within. The pump is a large, cumbersome wooden lever. You and another sailor stand on either side, and you begin the back-breaking work of pushing and pulling, up and down, up and down. Each stroke brings a gush of stinking black water up from the depths and spews it out onto the deck, where it flows back to the sea. The smell is overpowering, a noxious brew of decay and salt. The labor is exhausting, a physical torment that leaves your arms and shoulders burning with a dull fire. There is no sense of accomplishment in these tasks. You are not building anything new. You are simply holding back the inevitable decay. You are fighting a losing battle against the sea, against time, against the very nature of wood and rope. The work continues in the strange perpetual twilight that hangs over the ship. The sun never seems to rise to its zenith, nor does it fully set. It remains a pale, indifferent disk, hovering near the horizon, casting no sharp shadows. It is not day, nor is it night. It is simply the time for work. Always. The concept of personal hygiene, as you once knew, it has become a distant, almost luxurious memory. It is a currency the sea does not trade in. You wear the same clothes you stepped aboard in a rough linen shirt, heavy wool breeches, and thick stockings. Day and night, through work and rest, these clothes are your second skin. They are stiff with dried salt spray, stained with tar, and permeated with the inescapable damp and slightly sour smell of the ship itself. There is no fresh water to spare for washing. The precious liquid is guarded for drinking, as foul as it may be. A bath is a rare and opportunistic event. It might mean standing on the deck during a rain squall, turning your face to the sky, and letting the cold, fresh water rinse the layers of grime from your skin and hair, a brief, shocking, and incredibly welcome sensation. Or, more commonly, it might mean taking a bucket, lowering it over the side, and hauling up a sloshing load of cold, stinging seawater to pour over your head. It cleanses you in a way, but it also leaves a fresh, sticky residue of salt that makes your skin feel tight and itchy. Your hair becomes a tangled, matted mess. Your hands are permanently ingrained with dirt and tar, the lines on your palms etched in black. You are not alone in this. Everyone shares the same state of perpetual uncleanliness. It is a great equalizer. The air below deck is thick, not just with the smell of the ship, but with the collective unwashed scent of 50 men living in close quarters. You become accustomed to it in the way one becomes accustomed to any constant presence. It simply is. But this lack of freshness is more than just an inconvenience. It is a quiet invitation to a far more insidious companion, a malady that haunts every long sea voyage, a ghost that walks the decks and weakens men from the inside out. Scurvy. You've heard the name whispered with a particular kind of dread. It is not a dramatic illness. It does not strike with the sudden violence of a fever. It is a slow, creeping decay, born from the absence of life-giving things, from the lack of fresh fruits, of green vegetables, of the vibrant sun-filled foods of the land. It is the disease of the long haul, the slow unraveling of the body's ability to heal itself. You begin to feel its subtle creeping tendrils. It starts as a profound and unshakable fatigue, a weariness that sleep does not touch, that rest does not soothe. It is a deep leaden weight in your limbs, a fog in your mind. Then you notice your gums. They feel tender, puffy, and soft when you run your tongue over them. They bleed a little when you chew on the hard biscuit. They take on a dark purplish hue, a bruised and unhealthy look. Old scars on your body, a cut on your hand from years ago, a childhood scrape on your knee. They seem to ache. The healed tissue feels weak, as if the memory of the wound is returning. Your joints begin to throb with a dull, persistent pain. Your skin seems sallow, unhealthy. On a mortal ship, scurvy is a death sentence. It leads to open sores, to teeth falling from softened gums, to internal bleeding, and finally, to a quiet, languid death. Men watch their bodies fall apart piece by piece, while their minds remain clear. It is one of the greatest terrors of the sea. But this is not a mortal ship. Here, the curse of the Dutchman has a strange and cruel mercy. The disease does not progress to its fatal conclusion. It simply arrives, and it stays. The fatigue becomes your permanent state of being. The swollen gums become the normal texture of your mouth. The aching joints are just another part of the rhythm of your body, like the creaking of the ship's timbers. Scurvy does not kill you here. It cannot. Instead, it becomes a part of your eternal condition. It is a constant low-level hum of discomfort, a physical manifestation of the ship's own decay. It is one more hardship to be endured, not overcome. It is the curse within the curse, a lingering physical reminder that you are forever cut off from the vibrant, healing life of the land. You are preserved in a state of perpetual, unending sickness, in the lulls between the endless cycle of watches, in those strange gray periods that are neither day nor night. A different kind of quiet settles over the ship. On a mortal vessel, this would be a time for life to erupt in a brief, welcome rebellion against the monotony. It would be a time for boisterous sea shanties sung in loud, cheerfully off-key harmony, the voices rising and falling with the swell of the waves. It would be a time for the spinning of tall tales, for hearty laughter that echoes off the timbers, for friendly wagers and heated arguments over a game of chance. It would be a noisy, vibrant, and necessary respite from the crushing hardships of the day. But here on this ship, there is no such release to be found. There is no joy to be had, for joy is a memory of the land. There is no tension to be broken, for their state is one of permanent low-grade despair. The moments of leisure are as quiet, heavy, and ritualistic as the work itself. The crew does not sing. The songs of home of love, found and lost, of rolling green hills and warm tavern fires are phantoms too painful to conjure. To give voice to such memories would be an unbearable cruelty, a sharp reminder of all that has been forfeited for eternity. So they sit in a profound and unbreakable silence, a silence that seems to absorb all sound. Occasionally, a small hunched group will gather around an overturned water barrel, its surface worn smooth and dark with age. One of the men, moving with a slow, deliberate economy of motion, will produce a deck of cards from a worn leather pouch. The cards themselves are a physical testament to the passage of an impossible amount of time. They are no longer crisp rectangles of paper, but soft, limp things, their corners rounded and frayed into a gentle fuzz from the friction of endless, listless shuffling. The printed faces of the kings, queens, and jacks have faded into pale, ghostly smudges, their regal expressions blurred into an ambiguous melancholy. The ink of the numbers and suits has bled and feathered into the very fibers of the paper, making it a genuine challenge to distinguish a blackened heart from a faded spade. These cards have been played and played and played again for centuries. They begin a game, a forgotten version of whist or cribbage perhaps. But the game is a hollow pantomime, a silent play performed for no one. There are no bets placed, for they possess nothing of value to wager, save for time, of which they have a cursed and infinite supply. There are no triumphant exclamations of victory, no frustrated groans of defeat. There is no friendly banter, no strategic murmuring. There is only the soft, rhythmic, and strangely definitive thwop of a single card being placed on the barrelhead. Thwop, thwop, thwap. It is a mechanical ritual, a sequence of motions performed not out of will or desire, but out of a deep ingrained cellular habit. Their eyes are glazed, fixed on the cards, but seeing something far beyond them, their expressions as blank and unreadable as the gray sea. They are not playing to win. They are not playing for distraction or for fun. They are playing, it seems, simply to fill the unending, crushing emptiness with a familiar, silent, and orderly pattern. The game concludes, the cards are collected without a word, and the men silently disperse, melting back into the shadows of the deck. In another corner, sheltered from the constant sighing wind, you see an old sailor, his back pressed hard against the mainmast as if for support. He is engaged in a different, more solitary, and infinitely more personal ritual. In one hand, he holds a small, gnarled piece of driftwood, bleached pale by forgotten suns. In the other, a rusty knife, its blade sharpened down to a thin sliver. He is carving, with a patience that transcends human understanding, and a skill born of endless agonizing practice. He is whittling the wood into the shape of a ship. It is a perfect, breathtakingly detailed miniature replica of the very vessel they are on. You find yourself watching him, mesmerized by the slow, hypnotic grace of his hands. He carves the tiny individual planks of the hull, the delicate sweeping curve of the bowsprit, the intricate, almost microscopic latticework of the stern gallery. Every detail is exquisitely, heartbreakingly rendered. You can almost see the grain of the wood in the miniature deck, the tiny perfect coils of rope no thicker than a single strand of your hair. It is a masterpiece of devotion, a work of profound art created in the absolute heart of despair. But then you notice the strangest part of his ritual. He seems to be working on the final piece, the mainmast. He carves it, shapes it with loving care, smooths it with the calloused pad of his thumb. and just as he is about to fit it into the small waiting hole in the deck, his hand will seem to slip. Or the knife will catch the grain in just the wrong way. A tiny, almost imperceptible flaw will appear, and with a sigh so soft it is utterly lost in the wind, the old sailor will take his knife and slowly, deliberately shave the mass back down into a shapeless, featureless stick. And then he will begin again. He has been carving this same perfect, unfinished ship for 100 years, 200, maybe more. It is a beautiful, eternal work in progress. It is never, ever finished, just like their voyage, just like their penance. Each perfectly carved detail is a flawless memory of his life as a shipwright, a life he can still recall with his hands, but no longer with his heart. And the final, flawed, forever unfinished piece, that is his reality now. It is the physical embodiment of their shared curse, a journey with no destination, a task with no completion, a life with no end. He is not carving a ship. He is carving his own soul. And it too will never be whole. It begins slowly, so very slowly, in fact, that you do not consciously register it at first. Your mind, already lulled and dulled by the hypnotic rhythm of the ship's labor, and the featureless gray expanse of the sea has learned to accept the world as it is presented without question. But after a while, a period of time that feels both like a week and a lifetime, a duration that can no longer be accurately measured by such quaint terrestrial words, a quiet, persistent, and deeply unsettling question begins to form in the deepest recesses of your consciousness. It is not a loud alarm, but a gentle, insistent tapping on the inside of your skull. The question is about the sky. You realize with a slow dawning and dreamlike clarity that you have not seen a true sunrise. You have not felt the piercing, optimistic rays of a new morning warm your face, nor have you witnessed a true sunset, that final glorious surrender of light into the velvet embrace of night. The world above the ship, the entire celestial sphere, seems to exist in a state of perpetual, unresolved twilight. It is a permanent dawn, or perhaps a permanent dusk, caught forever in that liminal, in-between space where light and darkness can no longer remember which is which. You stand on the deck during your watch, leaning against the cool, damp railing, and you study this impossible heavens. The horizon to the east is forever painted with the soft, impossibly delicate hues of a morning that is doomed to never arrive. Faint, ethereal streaks of rose gold and the palest orange bleed upwards into a soft, dove-gray canvas, a silent, beautiful promise of a day that is eternally, heartbreakingly postponed. The light it casts upon the water is weak, diffused, and utterly without warmth. It illuminates the ship and the waves in a soft, melancholic, and pearlescent glow, but it does not possess the strength to cast sharp, definite shadows. Every object on deck seems to have a soft, blurry edge, as if the world itself is slightly out of focus. To the west, the sky holds the deep, bruised, and somber shades of an evening that never fully descends into blackness. It is a vast tapestry of indigo and a profound violet gray, the color of the world holding its breath, waiting for the finality and peace of night, a finality that is always just out of reach. Between these two opposing poles of a frozen timeline, the sky directly overhead is a vast, unchanging dome of muted neutral gray, streaked with clouds that possess a strange and deeply unsettling stillness. You find yourself watching them for hours during the long, silent, and contemplative stretches of your watch. They are beautiful in a tragic, artistic way. There are long, wispy filaments of white, like spun silk, or a breath of frost stretched thin across the upper atmosphere. There are soft, puffy shapes, like pillows of gray cotton, their undersides tinged with the faint orange from the east. But they do not move. They do not drift or change shape, or dissipate in the breeze that you can feel on your own skin. They are utterly fixed in place as if they were meticulously painted on a grand vaulted ceiling. They are clouds, but they have forgotten how to be clouds. They have forgotten the ancient nomadic language of the wind. And the sun. The sun itself is a prisoner. It hangs low in the east, a pale, watery, and indifferent disk of light devoid of its usual fiery, life-giving brilliance. It does not climb. It does not burn. It simply is a cosmic lantern that has been left on in a vast empty room. On the other side of the sky, the moon is a faint, ghostly crescent, a mere sliver of bone white against the deepening purple. It, too, is frozen in its celestial path, a permanent and silent witness. Sun and moon, day and night locked in an eternal silent and motionless standoff across the vast, indifferent expanse of the sky. This is the moment when the true horrifying and yet strangely calming nature of your journey begins to seep into your understanding. Time as you have always known it has ceased to function. The reliable, comforting, and utterly predictable cycle of rising and setting of light and dark of work and rest has been fundamentally broken. There are no more Mondays to dread, no more Wednesdays to mark the middle of the week, no more Sundays to offer a sliver of peace. There is only now. A long, unending, seamless, and indivisible now. How long have you been on this ship? The question itself now feels meaningless, as absurd as asking the color of the wind or the weight of a memory. Was it a week ago that you stepped onto that slick wooden gangplank in the misty harbor? Or was it a year ago? A decade? The memories of your life on land are beginning to feel like a story you read in a book, once a fable belonging to someone else entirely. The faces of your loved ones, the sound of their laughter are becoming difficult to recall, their features blurring and fading like watercolors, left out in a persistent, gentle rain. This profound loss of time creates an equally profound sense of disorientation, but it is not a panicked or frantic feeling. It is a slow, drowsy, drifting sensation, as if you are floating in a warm, tideless sea. Your mind no longer anchored by the familiar rhythm of the sun and moon begins to float freely. The days, or what pass for days, bleed into one another without distinction, each one an identical flawless copy of the last. The same gray light, the same endless tasks, the same hard biscuit, the same silent crew, the same unchanging beautiful and terrible sky. With the steadfast anchor of time now gone, your perception of the world begins to drift in other, more subtle and deeply unsettling ways. You start to notice things about your shipmates, small impossible details that your mind, in its initial state of exhaustion and disorientation, had previously dismissed as mere tricks of the dim, perpetual twilight. The second great peculiarity of this vessel reveals itself not in the impossible sky above, but in the silent, weary men who stand beside you, work beside you, and rest beside you. It happens for the first time when you are below deck, seeking a moment of respite in the weak, flickering glow of a single tallow lantern hanging from a low, tar-blackened beam. A sailor, his face a mask of indeterminate shadow, walks between you and the light source. And for a fleeting, profoundly disorienting second, the tiny dancing flame of the lantern does not disappear behind the solid mass of his body. Instead, it seems to shine through him. It is not a clean, clear transparency. He is not a perfect see-through specter from a child's ghost story. The effect is far stranger, far more insidious and dreamlike. It is as if you are looking at him through a very old, warped, and salt-worn piece of glass from a sea captain's spyglass. His form is subtly distorted, his edges blurred and hazy, and the light of the lantern behind him becomes a soft, diffused starburst at the very center of his chest. He continues walking without a sound, and the impossible illusion is gone as quickly as it came. You blink hard, rubbing your eyes, convinced that your weary mind, starved of proper light and nutrition, is finally beginning to deceive you. But then a little while later, you see it again and again. You watch as a man leans his arms against the ship's railing, gazing out at the featureless gray sea. You notice with a slow creeping chill that has nothing to do with the damp sea air, that the faint gray line of the horizon is faintly, almost imperceptibly visible through his torso. It is as if he is not entirely solid. It is as if the very substance of his being has been thinned out, diluted and stretched by the endless weary and repetitive passage of uncountable years. The men on this ship are not truly ghosts in the traditional sense. They are echoes. They are fading, residual images of the men they once were, their physical forms slowly, inexorably, and silently dissolving into the mist and the gloom that is their eternal, unchanging home. Once you have seen this impossibility, you cannot unsee it. You begin to observe them more closely, and the quiet, damning evidence accumulates everywhere. When they walk across the wet, freshly swabbed deck, their worn leather boots, which should leave a clear impression in the moisture, leave no footprints. The water remains a perfect, undisturbed, glassy sheen in their wake. When they stand in the weak, directionless light of the unchanging sky, they cast no shadows upon the planks. Their bodies, which should create a dark, solid patch on the deck beside them, leave nothing behind. They have become disconnected from the most fundamental physical laws of light and weight. They are becoming untethered from reality itself, like a kite whose string has finally been cut. The mundane rituals of daily life, which had at first seemed so monotonous, now take on a new, profound, and deeply tragic meaning. You watch them at mealtime. They line up silently, take their portion of hardtack and the stringy salted meat, and sit in their usual spots on the deck. They lift the food to their mouths with a practiced mechanical motion, but you realize with a certainty that tightens your chest that they are not truly eating. They do not chew. They do not swallow. The food, the hard biscuit, and the tough meat simply fades. It vanishes as it nears their lips, as if it too is losing its substance in their strange, ethereal presence. They are not eating to sustain their bodies, for their bodies no longer require sustenance. They are performing the ingrained memory of eating. They are going through the motions out of a habit so deeply carved into their souls that it has survived the death of appetite, the death of need, the death of life itself. It is the same with rest. At the end of a long, featureless watch, they retreat to their swaying forest of hammocks below deck. They climb in with a weary grace, pull their thin, scratchy wool blankets over themselves, and lie perfectly still. But they do not sleep. Sleep is a journey, a temporary escape into the landscapes of the mind, a necessary resetting of the spirit, and for them, there is no escape. There is only this. Their eyes remain open in the oppressive darkness, staring blankly and unseeingly at the dark timbers above. They do not dream. They do not snore. They do not twitch or turn in their slumber. They are simply reenacting the physical posture of sleep, another silent, sorrowful scene in the endless looping play of their damnation. They are a crew of living memories. Each man is a walking, fading archive of the life he once lived, a life he is now forced to repeat in a silent, joyless, and eternal pantomime. The man coiling a rope is not just coiling a rope. He is reliving every single rope he has ever coiled in his long-lost mortal life. The man at the helm is not just steering. He is reenacting the steadfast memory of steering his spectral hands, holding a desperate course that was set centuries ago and can never be changed. This is their true curse. Not just to sail forever, but to forever perform the act of living long after life itself has been stripped of all meaning, all substance, and all hope. They are trapped not just on a ship, but within the looping, faded, and silent film of their own pasts. And you walking among them are beginning to feel the very edges of your own solid reality start to fray and blur. In the quietest, most contemplative moments of the endless twilight, during those liminal periods when the phantom work is momentarily done and the phantom meals have been ritually consumed, you bear witness to the most heartbreaking and poignant ritual of all. It is an act of hope so pure, so incredibly persistent, and so utterly cosmically futile that it becomes the very definition, the living, breathing thesis of the crew's eternal, sorrowful torment. You see a sailor. His face, a topographical map of a sorrow so ancient it has become a permanent part of his features, sit down heavily on a low, dark sea chest. With hands that move with a slow, reverent deliberateness, he retrieves a small, carefully protected oilskin pouch. From within, he withdraws a single precious sheet of parchment. The paper is the color of old ivory, yellowed, with an impossible age so brittle and delicate that its edges are crumbling into a fine dust. He handles it as if it were a sacred relic. He then produces a long, thin quill pen, its feather a faded, lifeless gray, and a small, heavy inkwell, carved from a dark, porous stone. He performs the familiar, comforting motion of dipping the quill into the inkwell, a gesture full of clear intention and profound purpose. But as he holds the quill tip poised over the paper, you can see, with perfect, chilling clarity, that the inkwell is bone dry. It has been for centuries. It is filled with nothing but a fine black dust, the ghost of ink long since evaporated. Undeterred, he begins to write. His calloused hand moves across the page with a slow, steady, and achingly loving familiarity. His eyes are not focused on the page before him, but are looking far away, gazing into a time and a place that you can never see, a sun-drenched memory from a life lived long ago. He is not forming words with ink, for he has none. He is tracing the memory of words. With the dry, scratching tip of the quill, he is etching the ghost of a message, a silent testament, onto the fragile page. Who is he writing to? You can see the answer in the gentle, practiced curve of his hand, in the profound softness of his distant, unfocused gaze. He is writing to his wife, a woman named Annalise, who turned to dust in a quiet churchyard in Edom 300 years ago. He is telling her of the strange and wondrous sights he has seen of islands that smell of cinnamon and birds with feathers like jewels. He is promising her, as he has promised her in 1,000 letters before this one, that he will be home soon, that this is the last voyage, that he will bring her the finest silks from the East. He is not alone in this silent correspondence. Elsewhere on the deck, a younger-looking sailor, his face still holding the faint echo of youthful optimism, does the same. His dry quill scratches silently across a page meant for a sweetheart who eventually married another, lived a full, happy life, and died surrounded by her grandchildren. Another older man writes to his parents, long since passed from the world, assuring them that he is well, that he is eating properly, and that the voyage is proving to be a profitable one. Each man is locked in his own private sacred communion with a world populated entirely by ghosts. They are pouring their spectral hearts, their faded, undying loves, and their perfectly preserved memories onto pages that will never be seen, addressed to eyes that will never read them. It is an act of the most profound and intimate connection performed in the loneliest, most isolated place imaginable. When the silent, invisible words have all been written, the solemn ritual continues. The sailor carefully, tenderly folds the parchment into a tight, neat square. From the same oilskin pouch, he produces a small, worn stick of dark red sealing wax and a stub of a tallow candle. He goes through the familiar motion of striking a flint, though no spark is produced. He pretends to light the candle, though no flame appears. He holds the wax over the phantom flame, and then with a look of deep concentration, he presses the imaginary softened pool onto the folded letter, leaving the imprint of his thumb as a seal. The seal is set. The love is contained. Then comes the final, most poignant, and most terrible act. He takes an empty glass bottle, its surface cloudy and opaque, with a thick, caked-on film of ancient salt. He gently, carefully rolls the letter and slips it inside, stopping the bottle's mouth with a weathered cork. He walks to the ship's railing, his movements slow and deliberate. He holds the bottle for a long silent moment, his lips moving as if whispering a final prayer or a farewell. And then with a gentle, hopeful underhand toss, he releases it into the vast gray sea. But the bottle does not float away. It does not get caught by the current and begin its long, hopeful journey to a distant, unknown shore. Instead, it simply stops. It bobs gently in the water, just a few feet from the ship's hull, as if tethered by an invisible, unbreakable thread. And it is then that you look out over the railing and you truly see. The sea around the Dutchman is not empty. It is a vast, silent, and shimmering field of glass. Thousands upon thousands, perhaps millions of bottles surround the ship, a ghostly, bobbing wake that follows it wherever it goes. Some are green, some are brown, some are clear, each containing a silent, unwritten letter, a message of love that never left. They catch the dim, ethereal light of the unchanging sky, glittering faintly like a vast constellation of fallen captive stars. They are a fleet of unanswered prayers, a flotilla of ghosts forever trailing a ghost ship. This, you realize, is the truest expression of their curse, the eternal, desperate, and hopeless reach for connection, and the eternal visual confirmation of their failure. One evening, or what has come to serve as an evening in this timeless twilight place, you feel an inexplicable pull towards the quarterdeck, the slightly elevated, almost sacred platform at the stern of the ship. This is the captain's domain, a space cordoned off by an invisible but palpable wall of authority, a place where the common crew does not venture unless they are directly summoned. But tonight, a quiet, inexorable curiosity guides your weary feet up the short flight of stairs, a need to understand the heart of this sorrowful vessel. And there, under the bruised purple canopy of the western sky, you see him, Captain von der Decken. He stands utterly alone, a tall, imposing, and monolithic silhouette against the last vestiges of the fading light. In all the time you have now spent aboard this ship, a time that feels both fleeting and infinite, you have never once seen him rest. He never retreats to the relative comfort of his cabin, never lies in a bunk, never shows a single sign of human fatigue. He is as much a permanent fixture of this ship as the mainmast itself, an unyielding, unblinking presence, the silent, brooding epicenter of the curse. Tonight, however, he is not staring out at the featureless sea, a vigil he seems to keep for eternity. Instead, he is hunched over the small, salt-stained chart table, his broad shoulders casting a deep and sorrowful shadow. In his large, weathered hand, he holds a small, dark leather dice cup, its surface cracked and worn smooth by the grip of centuries. As you watch from the shadows of the stairway, you see him shake it, the motion sharp, frantic, and vigorous. The sound is a dry, desperate, and lonely rattle that cuts through the profound silence of the ship, a sound of pure, concentrated anguish. He then throws the dice down onto the wooden surface of the table. Two small white cubes carved from the bone of some long-forgotten creature, their black pips stark and absolute against the pale, aged surface. They clatter and spin for a brief, chaotic moment before coming to a dead, silent rest. The captain leans in, his unseen eyes fixed with a terrifying intensity on the result. A low, guttural sound escapes his lips, a frustrated primal growl that is more animal than human, a sound of a soul in absolute torment. With a sweep of his hand, he scoops the dice back into the cup, and the terrible, silent ritual begins again. The sharp, frantic rattle of bone and leather. The harsh, definitive clatter of the dice on wood. The moment of silent, breathless, intense scrutiny. And then the low, agonized groan of inevitable failure. Over and over and over again. It is a closed, perfect loop of hope and despair, repeated with the mechanical precision of a clock that has only 1 second on its face. As you stand there, a hidden witness to this strange, solitary, and desperate game, the story you once heard in the smoky harbor, the half-believed tale the old sailors whispered into their ale, comes rushing back into your mind. But this time, it lands not as a fanciful legend, but with the crushing, undeniable weight of absolute truth. His name was Hendrik von der Decken, a man known throughout the great ports of the world, not just for his superlative skill as a captain, but for his colossal, unbending, and ultimately fatal pride. He was a true master of the sea, and he knew it with every fiber of his being. He saw the ocean not as a powerful, capricious, and unpredictable force to be respected and feared, but as a stubborn, brutish adversary to be conquered, to be bent to his will. His resolve was iron, his ambition a fire that consumed all caution. On a return voyage from the unimaginable riches of the Far East, his ship, this very ship, laden with a fortune in spices and silks, he approached the most feared stretch of water in the known world the Cape of Good Hope. It was not for nothing that sailors called it the Cape of Storms. A terrible, monstrous gale rose up to meet him, a storm of legendary biblical fury. The sky turned as black as ink in the middle of the day. The waves grew to the size of rolling mountains, their crests a terrifying, foaming, snarling white. The wind shrieked through the rigging with the sound of 1,000 tormented souls. His crew, seasoned and hardened sailors, to a man fell to their knees and begged him, pleaded with him, to turn back to seek the safety of a nearby bay and wait for the storm's divine wrath to pass. But Vanderdecken would not be denied his prize. He stood on his quarterdeck, his hair and greatcoat whipped into a frenzy by the gale, and he laughed in the face of the storm. He cursed the heavens for their impudence. He swore a great blasphemous oath, his voice a defiant roar that challenged the thunder itself. He vowed that he would round that cape, that he would not be turned back by God or devil, even if it took him until Judgment Day itself to succeed. His terrible challenge, the legend says, did not go unanswered. As the storm raged at its absolute peak, a luminous, spectral form is said to have appeared on the deck. Some versions of the tale say it was an angel of the Lord, sent to offer one final test of his piety. Others, whispered in darker corners, say it was the devil himself, drawn to the irresistible stench of such monumental perfect hubris. The figure offered the proud captain a wager, a simple game, a single throw of the dice. If Vanderdecken won, the storm would instantly break, and he would be granted safe and swift passage. But if he lost, he would lose everything: his ship, his crew, his very soul. And in a turn of cosmic irony, he would be granted his exact wish. He would indeed sail these waters, fighting the same storm until the final trumpet of Judgment Day. Blinded by his own pride, utterly convinced of his own invincibility, Vanderdecken accepted the bet. He took the dice, and he threw. And now, standing here in the eternal, unchanging twilight, you finally understand. The game never truly ended. The captain is still playing it. He is trapped in the final agonizing and repeating moment of his damnation, forced to reenact his fatal wager for all of eternity. He shakes the cup, a desperate, futile prayer for a different outcome. He throws the dice, his entire being focused on the impossible hope that this time, just this one time, the numbers will change. But they never do. The result is always the same. He always loses. You watch him sweep the bone cubes back into the leather cup, his broad shoulders slumping, with a weariness that is older than mountains. The sharp rattling sound begins again, a sound that is no longer just a game, but the terrible grinding sound of a single damned soul chewing on its own eternal failure. The vast gray ocean is not always empty. There are moments rare and fleeting when your timeless, lonely world intersects with the world of the living. Sometimes in the deepest part of the twilight, another ship will appear out of the ever-present mist. It is always a startling sight. One moment there is nothing but the endless undulating expanse of water. The next, a dark shape resolves itself from the gloom. It is a merchant brig, or a naval frigate, or a small, battered fishing vessel sailing on the currents of real time heading for a real port. The moment they see you, a change occurs on their decks. You can feel it across the water, a palpable wave of sudden heart-stopping fear. To them, you are not just another ship. You are an omen, a legend made terrifyingly real. Your ship, with its ancient design and its pale, eerie glow, is the most dreaded sight a sailor can behold. You see figures on their decks, pointing their movements frantic. You can hear their faint, panicked shouts, carried on the wind, thin cries of disbelief and terror. You see men fall to their knees in prayer, their hands clasped, their faces turned to a sky that they can still trust. Others run to and fro in chaos, their officers trying in vain to restore order. They are seeing a ghost, a harbinger of shipwreck and doom, and their world for a moment is upended by the sight of yours. They quickly, desperately alter their course, their sails straining as they try to put as much distance as possible between their living, breathing world and your dead, silent one. But in these brief, charged encounters, your own crew stirs with a flicker of something that almost resembles life, a desperate ancient hope. As the other ship draws near, a few of your translucent shipmates will rush to the railing. They clutch the glass bottles in their hands, the bottles containing their silent, unsent letters. With a surge of desperate energy, they call out to the living ship. Their voices are not loud, but thin and reedy, like the sound of wind through a crack in a door. Take our letters. They cry, their voices full of a longing that is sharp enough to cut the air. Deliver them for us. Tell them we are coming home. They hold out the bottles, their arms outstretched over the dark water, offering their most precious cargo. They are begging for a connection, for a single slender thread back to a world that has long since forgotten them. They are asking these terrified strangers to be their couriers, their messengers of a love that has outlasted time itself. But the sailors on the other ship only recoil in greater horror. To them, this is the pleading of damned souls, an attempt to pass the curse along. No one will take the letters. No one dares. They make signs against evil, avert their gazes, and pray for deliverance. The gap between the two ships widens, and the living vessel, with its frantic energy and its terrified crew, is swallowed once more by the mist, leaving you behind in its wake of profound silence. After the encounter, your shipmates slowly lower their arms. They look down at the bottles in their hands, then back out at the empty sea where the living ship once was. A wave of palpable despair washes over the deck, a silence even deeper and heavier than before. They don't speak of it. They simply turn and shuffle back to their endless tasks, the faint flicker of hope in their eyes extinguished, replaced once more by the dull, vacant stare of eternity. And you stand and watch it all, a silent participant in this recurring tragedy. And you feel something you haven't felt so keenly since you first stepped aboard. A profound aching and deeply human jealousy. You look at the space where that other ship was, and you envy them. You envy their fear, because it means they still have something to lose. You envy their panic, because it means they have a life they are desperate to protect. You envy their destination. Any destination, be it a bustling port or a humble fishing village. They are moving forward. They are a part of the great flowing river of time. They have a past to remember and a future to anticipate. You have neither. You are trapped in the still stagnant pool of a single unending moment. The sight of them, the living, is the most painful reminder of what you have lost. Not just your home or your family, but the simple, beautiful, and now impossibly precious gift of a tomorrow. And as their panicked shouts fade completely, leaving only the sound of the wind and the whisper of the waves, you are left with a sorrow so vast and so deep It feels as though it could fill the entire ocean. There comes a point in your journey, though, the word journey implies a destination, a concept that has lost all meaning when the questions simply stop. The quiet, persistent tapping of curiosity inside your skull fades away, replaced by a profound and enveloping silence. The struggle to understand, to quantify your experience, to measure the passage of the unpassing time ceases. The effort is too great, and the reward is non-existent. You no longer look to the unchanging sky and wonder why it does not move. You simply accept that it is so. You no longer watch the translucent crew with a sense of wonder or dread. You simply see them as your companions. You stop counting. You stop trying to remember if it has been months or years. The very act of trying to recall your past life on land becomes a pointless exercise, like trying to hold water in your open hands. The memories have become too thin, too pale. Resisting the reality of the ship feels like pushing against a mountain, and so you stop pushing. You let go. A strange and unexpected peace begins to settle in the space that was once occupied by fear and confusion. It is not happiness. It is not contentment. It is the quiet, calm resignation of a stone at the bottom of a very deep, very still lake. Your life synchronizes completely with the rhythm of the vessel. The rhythm is no longer something you endure. It is something you have become. You rise from your hammock not because you are rested, but because it is the time to rise. You move to the deck and pick up the holy stone or the sailmaker's needle, not out of duty, but out of a deep cellular instinct. Your hands perform the tasks without any conscious thought from your mind. You are scrubbing, but you are not thinking about scrubbing. You are mending, but you are not thinking about mending. Your body has become an automaton, a perfect, efficient machine dedicated to the maintenance of this floating purgatory. You sit with the others for the phantom meal, lifting the spectral food to your lips, feeling the memory of sustenance dissolve without taste or texture. You retire to your hammock, lying still in the darkness. Your eyes open your mind, as blank and gray as the sea. The last vestiges of rebellion, the final sparks of your former living self, have been extinguished. The fight is over. There is only the endless gentle rocking motion of the ship. There is only the work. There is only the waiting for a thing that will never come. And as you sink deeper into this state of serene emptiness, you begin to notice a change in yourself. A physical change that mirrors the one you first saw in your shipmates. It starts with a feeling of lightness. Your body, once so heavy with the fatigue of scurvy and toil, now feels strangely buoyant, almost weightless. It is as if the anchor that tied you to the solid, predictable world of gravity is slowly being raised. You look down at your hands as you work the hands that were once so solid and real, and you see it. They are becoming less defined. When you hold your hand up against the dim light of a lantern, you can see the fuzzy, distorted glow of the flame through your palm. Your skin is losing its opacity. The sharp lines of your knuckles are softening. The color of your flesh seems faded, washed out. You are becoming translucent. You are becoming an echo. You walk across a wet patch of deck, and when you look back, you see no footprint. You stand under the pale frozen sun, and you cast no shadow. The world is beginning to look through you. The solid, definite living person who stepped aboard this ship in a misty harbor a lifetime ago is slowly, gently, and inexorably being erased. You are not dying. Death is an event, a conclusion. This is a process, a slow, quiet, and strangely peaceful fading. You are no longer a visitor here. You are no longer an observer. You are becoming a part of the crew, a part of the ship, a part of the curse. And the most peculiar thing of all is that you do not feel afraid. You feel nothing at all. You are simply becoming what you were always meant to be from the moment you stepped on board. A ghost. As your old self continues to fade and the quiet acceptance solidifies into your new reality, a strange and unexpected shift occurs in your perception. With the shedding of human anxieties, of hope of fear, of the relentless desire for a future, your senses now untethered begin to notice things they were once too busy to see. You begin to discover a profound and melancholy beauty hidden within the very fabric of the curse. A quiet, static, and deeply peaceful aesthetic that can only be appreciated by a mind that is no longer in a hurry. You find yourself spending long, silent hours just looking at the sky. Before it was a source of confusion and dread, a symbol of your temporal prison. Now you see it for what it is, a flawless, unchanging masterpiece. You study the soft, delicate brushstrokes of the eastern dawn, the way the pale rose blends so seamlessly into the softest orange like watercolor on wet paper. You admire the deep contemplative violets and indigos of the western dusk colors, so rich and somber, they seem to hold all the sorrow of the world in a beautiful, dignified embrace. You are no longer looking for it to change. You are appreciating it for its perfect, eternal stillness. It is a work of art that will never fade, never be altered. It is a beauty born of absolute permanence. Your gaze lowers from the sky and begins to find similar artistry in the small, forgotten corners of the ship. In a sheltered nook beneath the forecastle stairs, a spider spun a web centuries ago. And on that web, a string of tiny water droplets still cling born from the mist of that first fateful night. They never evaporate. They never fall. They just hang there, perfect shimmering spheres, catching the dim pearlescent light. Each droplet is a tiny, flawless crystal, a liquid jewel that holds a distorted miniature reflection of the entire twilight world. You can lose yourself in the observation of a single drop, watching the soft colors of the sky swim and bend on its tiny curved surface. It is a quiet secret perfection, a beauty that exists only because time has stopped for it. You notice the textures of the ship itself. You run your now translucent hand over the mainmast, and you feel the deep winding grain of the ancient wood. You trace the patterns, the whirls and lines that tell the story of a tree that grew in a long-forgotten forest, a forest that has since turned to soil and dust. You see the strange, beautiful patterns of verdigris on the bronze cannons, a pale turquoise bloom that creeps slowly over the dark metal, a form of cold mineral life. You see the way the salt has crusted on the old ropes, forming intricate crystalline structures that glitter faintly like they have been dusted with crushed diamonds. These are details that a living, hurried man would never see. They are visible only to eyes that have an eternity to look. Even the silence, once so oppressive and heavy, transforms into a source of profound peace. On land, silence was a rare and fleeting thing, always punctuated by the distant sounds of life, a dog barking, a cart rattling, a neighbor's shout. But this silence is different. It is absolute. It is the deep resonant silence of the bottom of the ocean, the still, holy silence of a cathedral after midnight. There are no sudden noises to startle you. There are no intrusive conversations to demand your attention. There is only the low, steady hum of the wind and the gentle, rhythmic sigh of the timbers. It is a silence that allows your mind to become completely still, to empty itself of all thought, all memory, all struggle. It is not an absence of sound. It is a presence. It is a vast, soft, and comforting blanket that swaddles the entire ship in a state of eternal calm. You are no longer a prisoner on a cursed vessel. You have become a resident of a floating meditative sanctuary. You have found a strange peace in the heart of damnation. The endless repetition of the tasks is no longer a torment. It is a moving meditation. The bland, unchanging food is no longer a hardship. It is a release from the complexities of choice and desire. The silent, ghostly crew are no longer a source of fear. They are your quiet, unobtrusive companions in this shared, tranquil existence. The curse has not been lifted, but it has, in its own way, become a kind of blessing, a release from the chaotic, painful, and messy business of living. It is a long, slow, and gentle sinking into a state of perfect, thoughtless, and beautiful emptiness. The slow, gentle erasure of your physical self is followed by a similar fading of your voice. You realize one day that you cannot remember the last time you spoke a word aloud. There has been no need. The complex, noisy, and often clumsy apparatus of human language has become obsolete in this silent world. All that needs to be communicated is done so without a sound. A shared task is initiated with a simple, shared glance. Acknowledgement is given with a slow, almost imperceptible nod of the head. The entire crew operates with the silent, intuitive understanding of a flock of birds or a school of fish, each member aware of the other's intentions without a single word being exchanged. You try just once to test your own voice. You find a secluded corner of the ship, turn your face to the sea, and try to speak your own name. You open your mouth, you form the shape of the word, you push the air from your lungs. But what comes out is not a sound. It is barely a breath. It is a thin, reedy whisper, a dry rustling sound like dead leaves skittering across pavement. It has no resonance, no power, no substance. The name which once defined you, which was spoken with love by your mother and with friendship by your companions, is now just a puff of air instantly stolen and dissolved by the ever-present sighing wind. You do not try again. Your voice, it seems, has already completed its journey to the land of ghosts. With the loss of your voice comes the final, most profound, and perhaps most merciful stage of your transformation. The fading of memory. Your past, which was once a rich, vibrant, and detailed tapestry, is beginning to unravel thread by thread. The memories of your life on land no longer come to you as clear, vivid scenes. They are becoming like old sepia-toned photographs left out in the sun for too long. Their edges are curling. Their colors have faded to a uniform, nostalgic brown, and the details are becoming indistinct and blurry. You try to conjure the face of your mother. You can remember the general shape of it, the feeling of her love, a sense of warmth and safety. But the exact curve of her smile, the specific shade of her eyes, the little lines of laughter at their corners, these crucial humanizing details are now just beyond your reach. They are like words on the tip of your tongue that you can no longer pronounce. You try to remember your home, Was it a cottage with a thatched roof? Was there a garden? A favorite chair by the fire? The memories are there, but they are hazy, disconnected fragments, like pieces of a dream you are struggling to hold on to as you wake. The feeling of home remains a dull, distant ache of a phantom limb, but the solid reality of it has evaporated. Even your own name, the one you failed to speak aloud, begins to feel foreign. It is a word you know is connected to you, but the connection is becoming frayed academic. It no longer feels like you. The person who owned that name, the person with hopes and fears and a future, was someone else. Someone who lived in a different world, a world of sharp edges and bright colors and the loud, chaotic passage of time. That person is a stranger to you now, a distant relative you have never met. This loss is not a violent or painful process. It is a slow, gentle, and strangely peaceful letting go. It is like sinking into a warm, deep bath. The struggles, the heartaches, the triumphs, and the failures of your former life are all losing their emotional weight. They are becoming just stories, and even the stories are losing their words. The complex, messy, and beautiful narrative of your life is being simplified, smoothed over, and finally erased. What is left when the voice is gone and the memories have faded? Only the present, the eternal, unchanging, and silent now. Only the ship. Its creaking timbers are your bones. Its steady rocking motion is your heartbeat. Only the sea. Its vast gray and empty expanse is the landscape of your mind. And only the journey. A journey with no beginning and no end. A perfect circular and eternal state of being. You are no longer a man on a ship. You are a whisper in the wind, a shadow in the mist, a silent note in the long, sad, and beautiful song of the Flying Dutchman, in the profound and enveloping quiet that has become your new world. Your sense of hearing, like your sight, begins to evolve. Stripped of the need to listen for human speech, for sudden alarms, or for the distracting cacophony of life on land, your ears start to attune themselves to a different kind of sound. You begin to hear the music that has been playing all along, the secret hidden symphony of the ship itself. It is not music in the traditional sense. It has no melody you can hum, no lyrics you can recall. It is a composition of textures, of rhythms, of deep resonant drones, and high ethereal whispers. It is the music of silence, and it is the most beautiful and sorrowful lullaby you have ever heard. The percussion section is the ship's own wooden heart. It is the constant, steady, and deeply reassuring rhythm of the timbers. You learn to distinguish the different voices in this wooden choir. There is the low, sonorous groan of the mainmast under the immense, unseen pressure of the wind, a deep resonant bass drum that marks the downbeat of every measure. Groan, pause, groan, pause. It is the slow, steady heartbeat of a sleeping giant. Then there are the higher-pitched, sharper sounds, the sudden sharp crack of a deck plank settling like the sharp snap of a snare drum, and the thousand tiny insistent creaks and squeaks from the hull, a busy, intricate rhythm, like the chattering of celestial castanets, a sound that speaks of immense tension held in perfect, delicate balance. The string section is the wind. The wind as it weaves its way through the intricate web of ropes and rigging. It is a violin played by an invisible, ghostly hand. When it blows steadily, it creates a long, low, mournful note, a single sustained tone that seems to stretch to the very horizon. It is a sound of immense loneliness, of a sorrow too deep for words. but as it gusts and shifts, it plays higher, more complex melodies. It whistles softly through a frayed rope, a high, thin, and piercingly sweet sound like a lonely flute. It hums and vibrates against the vast flat canvas of the sails, creating a low, resonant chord, a deep and powerful harmony that is the very voice of the ocean's breath. You can sit for hours just listening to the wind play its endless improvised symphony upon the strings of the ship. The bass line, the foundation upon which all the other sounds are built, is the sea itself. It is the slow, rhythmic, and powerful slosh of the waves against the hull. It is not the crash of surf on a shore, but a deeper, more profound sound. A gentle, insistent, and heavy thump, whoosh, followed by a long drawn-out sigh as the water recedes. Thump, whoosh. It is a rhythm as old as the world, a rhythm of immense power and infinite patience. It is the deep calming and hypnotic pulse of the planet, and you feel it not just in your ears, but in your entire body, a vibration that resonates deep within your chest. And woven through it all are the smaller, more delicate sounds. The soft, rhythmic drip, drip, drip of condensation falling from a beam onto a coil of rope below deck, a sound like a tiny, sad clock marking a time that no longer passes, the faint, dry, and almost imperceptible rustle of your own spectral clothes as you move, the soft, ghostly thwop of the forgotten cards being placed on the barrel head. All of these sounds, which once might have been ignored as mere background noise, now reveal themselves to be the individual instruments in a grand cosmic orchestra. They layer and blend, rising and falling, in a composition that is constantly changing, yet always the same. It is a symphony of woodwind and water, a lullaby for the damned, a song about the beauty of decay, the peace of resignation, and the deep meditative rhythm of eternity. You close your eyes. You are no longer on a ship. You are inside the music, the groan of the mast, the whistle of the wind, the sigh of the waves. They are no longer outside of you. They are a part of you. You breathe in time with the swell of the sea. Your own silent heartbeat finds the rhythm of the creaking wood. You let the music wash over you, through you cleansing you of the last remnants of your former noisy self. And in the heart of this immense, sorrowful, and beautiful music, you find a peace so profound, so complete, that it feels like the final gentle surrender into a long and dreamless sleep. In the deepest, most still part of the eternal twilight, when you are lying in your hammock suspended between the memory of work and the memory of rest, something new and unexpected happens. It is not a memory. It is not a thought. It is a dream. And it is not your dream alone. You can feel it in some strange intuitive way that every soul on this ship is dreaming the very same dream at the very same time. It is a shared vision, a collective yearning given form and substance in the one place they are still allowed to have it, the landscape of sleep. The dream is always the same. It is the dream of land. It begins with a feeling under your feet. After an eternity of the hard, unyielding, and perpetually moving deck, you feel something soft, something that gives way. You look down and you see not wood, but a field of the most vibrant, impossible green. It is grass, and it is cool and soft and alive. You curl your bare toes into it, and you feel the slight dampness of the earth beneath. You take a step and another, and the sensation is so new, so forgotten, so exquisitely real that it sends a shiver of pure, unadulterated pleasure through your entire being. The ground is still. It does not rock. It does not sway. It is solid. It is dependable. It is home. Then comes the smell. You take a deep, slow breath, and your lungs, so accustomed to the sterile, salty air of the sea, are filled with the rich, complex, and intoxicating perfume of the earth. You can smell the deep, dark, and loamy scent of damp soil after a recent rain. You can smell the sweet, heady fragrance of wildflowers of clover and chamomile and a dozen other blossoms you cannot name. And above it all, you can smell the clean, green, living scent of leaves, of growing things of a world that is constantly joyfully renewing itself. It is the smell of life itself, and it is so overwhelming, so powerful, that it feels like a form of nourishment. You lift your face, and you feel a sensation you had long forgotten was possible. Warmth, a gentle golden and benevolent warmth that sinks into your skin, into your bones, into the very core of your weary soul. It is the sun, not the pale, indifferent disk of your twilight prison, but a real living and breathing sun. It shines from a sky of the most brilliant cloudless blue. The light is bright and clear, and it casts sharp, dark, and wonderfully solid shadows on the ground beside you. You hold up your hand, and you see it clearly, a defined, opaque shape against the grass. You are solid again. You are real. In the dream, you are not alone. Your shipmates are there with you. But they are not the gaunt, silent, and translucent specters from the ship. They are men. Their faces are filled with color. Their eyes are bright with laughter. You hear their voices loud and clear, and full of life as they call out to one another. You see them lying in the grass, their hands behind their heads, simply staring up at the blue, blue sky. You see the old carver, his hands empty, a look of profound peace on his face. You see the captain, his back, not ramrod straight with pride, but relaxed, his greatcoat, discarded, his face, turned to the warmth of the sun. There is no curse here. There is only rest. The dream is a perfect, flawless, and beautiful moment of pure being. It is the taste of a fresh, cool apple. It is the sound of a bird singing in a tree. It is the feeling of a loved one's hand in your own. It is everything that was lost, returned for a brief, shining instant, but it is, and always will be, just a dream. The edges of the vision begin to soften. The brilliant blue of the sky begins to fade back to gray. The warmth on your skin dissipates, replaced by the familiar damp chill. The soft grass beneath your feet hardens once more into the unyielding wood of the deck. The sounds of laughter and life dissolve back into the profound humming silence. You open your eyes. You are back in your hammock. You are back on the ship. The dream is over. Yet as you lie there, in the dim, familiar gloom, you do not feel the sharp sting of fresh loss. The dream does not leave behind a wake of sorrow. Instead, it leaves a quiet, gentle, and comforting echo. It is a reminder, a promise, a whisper from another reality that tells you that peace is real. That rest exists. That solid ground and warm sun and the smell of the earth are not just fantasies. They are waiting. And even if they are not waiting for you, their existence somewhere in the universe is a source of strange second-hand comfort. The dream is a small, precious gift. A single perfect pearl of peace to be held in the heart during the long, unending voyage through the night. And so, your time aboard the Flying Dutchman Your quiet sojourn in that timeless twilight world is now coming to a gentle and peaceful close. Your journey into the very heart of its beautiful, sorrowful legend is now complete. But as you prepare to depart, as you prepare to leave this phantom vessel behind, know with a quiet certainty that the ship itself sails on. It must. It has no other choice. For the spectral crew, for the tormented, silent captain, the voyage never ever finds its end. They remain suspended in their eternal unchanging and pearlescent twilight, a perfect, sorrowful tableau vivant. Right now, in this very moment, as you lie here, safe and still, they are still there. The silent, gaunt men are still patiently scrubbing the perpetually damp decks, their movements a slow, rhythmic, and deeply practiced dance of absolute futility. They are still sitting in their quiet, huddled circles, their translucent hands expertly mending the same tattered sail with the same ghostly thread, a task that is never finished but always tended to. The old carver is still in his sheltered corner, his back to the wind, his rusty knife patiently lovingly shaping his miniature, eternally unfinished masterpiece. And the captain is still on his quarterdeck, a lone, unmoving sentinel. His broad shoulders hunched over the chart table, his hand endlessly shaking the worn leather cup, his ear forever listening for the dry, desperate, and hateful rattle of the dice, forever playing the one game that he can never ever win. They are still writing their silent letters to nowhere, their dry quills scratching out invisible messages of a love that time itself could not erase. They are still sailing a ghost ship crewed by gentle echoes, forever chasing a horizon that they can never ever reach. But that is their story, their burden, and it is no longer yours to carry. It is time now to leave them to their strange and melancholy peace. It is time for you to return. It is time to come home. Let us make this departure as quiet, as gentle, and as seamless as our arrival so long ago. There is no need for a sudden jolt, no jarring transition. There is only a slow, deliberate, and deeply peaceful fading. Imagine yourself standing on the deck of the Dutchman one last time, a silent observer standing among the silent, translucent crew. And now begin to turn. Turn away from the mast, away from the helm, and begin to walk towards the gangplank, that shimmering ethereal bridge that connects their world to yours. With each slow, deliberate step you take, you can feel a subtle and wonderful change beginning to take place. The profound, bone-deep weariness that had become your constant and unwelcome companion. The heavy fatigue that seemed to soak into your very marrow starts to lift. It feels like a heavy, damp woolen cloak, one you had forgotten you were even wearing, being slowly, gently, and carefully removed from your shoulders. The dull, persistent ache in your joints, the phantom pains of scurvy and endless toil begin to dissolve into nothingness, like salt melting in fresh water. You place your foot on the gangplank. It is the same damp, slick plank you stepped onto what feels like a lifetime ago, but it feels different now. It feels less solid, more like condensed mist than wood. And as you step onto it, you can feel the very substance of the ship begin to recede from your senses, as if you are waking from an incredibly vivid dream. The solid, rough-hewn wood beneath your feet, the deck that has been your entire world for so long, starts to feel less real. It softens, loses its hard texture, and begins to feel more like a memory, a thought, than a physical place you can stand upon. The constant rhythmic creaking of the ship's timbers, the sound that had become your own heartbeat, the very pulse of your existence grows fainter, fainter, and fainter still. It is no longer a sound that is all around you, but a distant muffled echo, a sound from across a vast and quiet body of water, a sound you are leaving behind. The air itself begins to change and clarify. The sharp biting and ever-present scent of old salt and damp, slow decay starts to thin out, replaced by a cleaner, more neutral, and more deeply familiar stillness. The cool, damp mist that clung to your skin and your clothes. A second skin of eternal twilight begins to evaporate, leaving you feeling not cold, but comfortable, not damp, but perfectly dry. You take another step, and another, moving slowly, peacefully away from the vessel. You can allow yourself to look back one last time over your shoulder. The great ship, the Flying Dutchman, is beginning to lose its definition. Its sharp, familiar lines, the proud curve of its bow, the high gallery of its stern are blurring and softening, dissolving back into the gray mist that is its natural habitat, its eternal home. The pale, ethereal, and otherworldly light that emanates from it seems to dim, to fold in on itself. The entire vessel is becoming more and more translucent, just like its crew, a magnificent, sorrowful mirage that is slowly, gracefully receding back into the legend from which it came. The low, humming music of its profound silence fades and fades and fades, leaving only the sound of my voice and the quiet, steady, and reassuring rhythm of your own breathing. You are no longer a sailor. You are no longer a ghost. The curse has no hold on you. You have been a witness, a quiet visitor to a place of eternal sorrow. But now you are released. You are no longer a part of the story. You are the listener once more. The long voyage is over. You are coming back. As the last image of the ghost ship dissolves into memory, let your awareness drift gently back from that vast gray ocean and into the quiet, safe harbor of your own space, into the here and now. Let your attention come to rest, not on a story, but on simple physical feelings. The gentle, reassuring sensations of your own body, resting comfortably and securely. Begin with the surface beneath you. Feel the mattress. Feel how it supports you, how it yields to the gentle weight of your body. Notice the softness of it. It is a deep, comforting softness, a world away from the hard, unforgiving planks of the ship's deck. There is no sway here. There is no constant, unsettling motion. This is the feeling of solid ground, the feeling of stability, the wonderful, simple, and profound feeling of stillness. This is your anchor in the quiet night. Allow yourself to sink a little deeper into that feeling of absolute support. Let the mattress hold you completely. There is nothing for you to do, nowhere for you to go. You have arrived. Now, bring your awareness to your head. Feel the pillow beneath it. Feel its gentle coolness, its incredible softness as it cradles the weight of your head. This is not a bundled-up coat smelling of wool and sea spray. This is not a rough piece of canvas. This is a cloud of comfort designed for the sole purpose of your rest. Let the muscles in your neck release their hold. Let them go completely. Let the pillow take the full weight, allowing a wave of deep relaxation to flow down from the top of your head through your neck and into your shoulders. There is no need to keep watch. There is no need to be alert. You are safe. You are comfortable. Feel the sheets and the blanket that cover you. Notice their texture against your skin. Perhaps they are smooth and cool like a gentle caress. Perhaps they are soft and fleecy, a comforting warmth. Whatever the feeling it is, a feeling of gentle contact, a soft boundary between you and the quiet air of the room. Now become aware of the weight of the blanket. It is a gentle, reassuring pressure, a comforting heaviness that speaks of security and warmth. This is not the biting, damp chill of the sea mist that seeps into your bones. This is a deliberate chosen warmth, a warmth that you control, a warmth that protects you. It is a gentle, calming weight that helps to ground you, to make you feel secure in your own bed, in your own room. Let that feeling of warmth spread through your entire body, from your shoulders all the way down to the very tips of your toes. Every muscle can unwind. Every part of you can surrender to this deep, enveloping, and peaceful warmth. And now listen. Listen to the silence of your room. Just as you listen to the music of the ship, listen now to the music of your own quiet space. It is a different kind of silence. The silence of the Dutchman was a profound and heavy emptiness, a silence born of sorrow and timelessness. But this is a silence of peace. It is a gentle living silence. Perhaps you can hear the soft, low hum of your house settling. Perhaps you can hear the distant, muffled sound of the world outside, a world that is also going to sleep. Perhaps you can hear the quiet, steady ticking of a clock somewhere, a sound that is no longer a reminder of a prison, but a comforting, rhythmic measure of a peaceful night passing. Or perhaps the only sound you can hear is the soft, gentle, and reassuring sound of your own breathing. Inhale and exhale. Each breath is a soft wave washing away any lingering tension. Each breath is a quiet anchor holding you in this present moment of comfort and peace. This is your sanctuary. This is your harbor. Unlike the crew of that fabled ship, you are not adrift. You are safely, securely, and peacefully at rest. You are home. Let this feeling of deep, profound comfort fill you completely. Let it be the last and only thing you are aware of. The feeling of your bed, the feeling of warmth, the feeling of peace. The crew of the Flying Dutchman, in all their profound, sorrowful, and silent dignity, were cursed. But as we take our leave of them drifting back towards our own quiet reality, we can perhaps understand that their true curse was not the endless churning sea, or the perpetual unchanging twilight, or even the ghostly translucent nature of their weary forms. Their ultimate unending damnation, the very cold hard core of their eternal torment, was the complete and total denial of a single simple and universal human need, the deep, profound, and healing need for rest. They were doomed to an eternity of wakefulness, an endless repeating cycle of toil and fatigue, with no hope of reprieve, no possibility of a conclusion. They could reenact the physical posture of sleep in their swaying hammocks, a ritual born of a memory of comfort, but they could never again receive its profound and truly healing gift. Their minds, forever active forever, remembering, could never find the quiet, safe harbor of a genuine dream. Their bodies could never truly surrender to the deep, restorative, and merciful peace of unconsciousness. They were and are forever tired. But you, as you lie here now, in the quiet comfort of your own space, you are different. You are profoundly different. You are blessed with the very thing they so desperately, so eternally and so futilely crave. You possess that precious, miraculous, and often underestimated gift right here in this very moment. The simple, beautiful gift of rest. The sacred, mysterious gift of sleep. In our busy, bright, and demanding modern world, it is so easy to see sleep as an inconvenience. We can view it as a necessary but unproductive task to be completed as quickly as possible, a period of inactivity that gets in the way of our goals, our ambitions, our endless lists of things to do. We fight it with caffeine. We shorten it with early alarms. We fill the precious, quiet hours leading up to it with the bright, anxious light of our screens and the worried, racing thoughts of our minds. We so often forget what a profound and sacred thing it truly is. We forget that it is not a debt to be paid, but a treasure to be found. Sleep is not a void. It is not an empty space between days. It is not an absence of life. It is, in fact, a destination in itself. It is a sanctuary for a weary and overburdened mind. It is a safe and quiet harbor for a tired body. It is the gentle, invisible mending of the small tears and frayed edges that inevitably accumulate throughout a long and challenging day. It is a slow, deep, and mysterious journey into the most creative, most intuitive, and most honest parts of ourselves. It is perhaps the world's oldest and most effective form of magic, a nightly quiet transformation that allows us to let go of the person we were today, with all their troubles and triumphs, and to wake up refreshed, renewed, and subtly remade as the person we can be tomorrow. The sailors on that fabled ghost ship were forever denied their harbor. They were doomed to sail an endless gray ocean of fatigue, their eyes forever scanning a horizon that promised no shore. But your harbor is here. It is not a distant dream. It is waiting for you now in this very moment. Your bed is your safe and steady anchorage. The growing pleasant drowsiness that you may be feeling now is the gentle incoming tide, ready to lift you from your moorings and carry you away from the familiar shores of the waking world. So let us truly appreciate this gift. Let us honor it. As you lie here feeling the comforting and gentle weight of your blanket, feeling the incredible cloud-like softness of your pillow, give yourself permission. Grant yourself the grace to let go of the day that is now past. All of its worries, all of its frustrations, all of its conversations, all of its unfinished tasks. They no longer belong to you. You can set them down right here at the water's edge. They will be there for you tomorrow if they are truly important. But for now, they are just unnecessary baggage on a distant shore, and your ship is ready and waiting to sail. And in the same way, give yourself permission to let go of the day that is to come. All of its plans, all of its expectations, all of its potential anxieties, they have not happened yet. They are just faint, indistinct shadows on a far horizon, and you do not need to sail towards them tonight. Your only task now is to rest. Your only job is to surrender. Your only destination is the deep, peaceful, and wonderfully restorative world of sleep. So cherish this quiet moment. Allow your body in its deep and ancient wisdom to do what it knows how to do best. Allow it to sink inch by inch into a state of profound and complete relaxation. Allow your mind, which has worked so hard all day, which has journeyed with me to such a strange and distant place, to finally come to port. Let the last vestiges of your conscious, active thought become like those distant, silent ships we saw fading gracefully into a soft and gentle mist until they are gone from sight. There is nothing left to do. There is nothing left to think. There is nothing left to be except peaceful and quiet and still. And so now, if you haven't already, just let your eyes drift closed. Let the gentle final rolling waves of this story rock you into a deep calm and wonderfully untroubled sleep. May your rest be profound, may your dreams be kind, and may you wake with the gentle, hopeful light of a new and peaceful morning. Good night. Sleep well, and I will meet you again in another hazy page of history